Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical Oils, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. Folks, please don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, we've got a birthday. We've got Charles H. Jefferson II says, happy 55th birthday to Auntie Karen. Happy birthday to Auntie Karen. Let's give her a little, yeah. Happy birthday to you, Karen Simmons. Wishing you many, many more. Audience, make sure you give her some birthday love out there. She has been a day oneer. So wishing her a very, very happy, peaceful, and loving day, surrounded by all that she wants and needs in her life. So big up to Auntie Karen Simmons on her birthday. All right, without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the day. The first politician to appear on the show since the 2025 general election. Let's give a warm TDH welcome to newly elected MP Dwayne Robinson. Oop, that's not it. Sorry. You know, Bermudians love to hump. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. That was folks honking at you saying, "Yeah, my way. Come on. Let's get this started." You know,
it's always polite in Bermuda, but you too.
Yeah, because
good morning, good afternoon.
If you've lived in New York, when they're honking, they're trying to run you over. You're crossing the street, they're honking, but they're still coming at you. So it's like, yeah, I'm letting you know I'm hitting you, not to get out of the way. It's not a warning. So, look, man, thanks for doing this. Thank you for making time for us, and congratulations on achieving, what you did in, getting elected. Because I know that you had spent years upon years canvassing in that area. You had previously served in the Senate on 2 occasions, if I'm not mistaken, and then you had run in constituency 30 previous, not 30, in 20.
Yeah, in C28.
28 against Dennis. Was it Dennis Lister the third? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So this, this was different for you. So again, congratulations. But let's jump right into it. So heading into the election, how were you feeling about your chances as an individual? Because you were up against one of the PLP's better candidates, right? How were you feeling as an individual, but also of the chances of your party?
To be honest, I was preparing myself for a close victory, only because I knew that I had the advantage being in the community and in the constituency for a longer period of time. So I had confidence that, based on those connections, that I would be coming out victorious in the election. However, it was the margin that really surprised me. I didn't expect it to be more than 20 votes plus of a swing. As far as the party's perspective, I think all of us expected that we, or at least hoped that we were going to do better than the outcome, at least 13 to 14 most likely. But obviously leadership was always pushing for, a victory. So that's what we were pushing towards and working hard towards. But, that's how it shook out.
Yeah, indeed. And why do you believe the OBA failed to inspire more voters to vote for them, even though the electorate seemingly rejected the PLP?
I think that one of the main things is that we as a party, we've done a lot to improve our communication, but we understand there's more work to be done, because even earlier in your segment, folks couldn't really name a policy that the One Bermuda Alliance was really pushing during the election campaign. I think that was one of the main reasons, because when the vote shook out, it showed you that majority of the population is fed up with the PLP. They did want change, but they were split between many options, each appealing to them in a different way. So I think for the OBA, our main thing is that we must highlight our policy better, and we must get back out on the doorstep and continue to show people that we care, that we're not just gonna shrink away because we came so close and we didn't quite get there. But yeah, I would say strengthening our approach towards communicating policy so that folks know what we stand for and what we intend to do.
Mhm. All right. Thanks for that. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they said, like, the PLP made the electorate did reject the PLP. They got less than 50%. Like, that's a rejection. They didn't vote for anyone. They rejected them. Let's be clear. They
Hmm.
intellectual to understand that the electorate rejected the PLP. No, that said, they're still the government. And I
Correct.
was speaking to someone yesterday, and they actually said to me, I think the FDM, if they stay consistent right now, have a better chance of being the next government than the One Bermuda Alliance, simply because they're more connected to the community. What do you think the OBA needs to do to connect more to the community? It can't just be press releases and public relations. Like, well, I mean, the PLP do politics better than anyone. I mean, you're taking the nerdiest of nerd guy and putting them in spaces where um, he didn't grow up in, to connect with people, shaking hands, buying people rounds at bars, and so on. Like, what do you guys need to do? Because I think you're missing that community connection, right?
Well, I think that I would say we have connected. I think that we need to connect more when it comes to constituency level, right? And I think that's why it was so imperative on leadership to get 36 candidates, because of course, if you don't have a person that's out on the doorstep massaging in your message, dealing with constituents on that level, then it's like the party image doesn't exist, because a lot of Bermudians are unable to focus on the national picture because they're busy working 2 3 jobs or raising children or doing whatever they need to do to survive, and to continue to look after their loved ones, that they're not necessarily tuned in as they would like to the national campaign.
Mhm.
So I think it is incumbent on us to make sure that we maintain our presence in all 36 constituencies, because that's what the Progressive Labor Party does really well, to their credit. But what I will say though is the electorate, when given those choices, uh, OBA was still the runner-up, despite having 27 independents, and I think it was 10 FDM candidates. None of them were able to get elected. So it does show you that connectivity is relative when it comes to folks believing whether you can govern. So I think that a strong party needs to balance the two, right? And I think that that's where the OBA is kind of working towards, being competent to govern, being competent to lead, but also being accessible, and being in each constituency. So I would say that, in my opinion, the electorate showed that the OBA is the closest poised to becoming government rather than the other options that were
But I
presented.
think my comment, based on what was said yesterday, is that had the remember, the independents just showed up, if we're honest, and the FDM pretty much just showed up again. If they were to stay consistent, they could cause trouble, and because they seem, some of them more connected. But don't want to get stuck on that, because definitely have to move on, because the election's done, it's dusted. It's now time to govern. You've been in the Senate previously on 2 occasions. What do you hope to add to the House, where the PLP has a much larger majority than in the Senate? What do you hope that you can bring?
Well, I think one of the main things that I've kind of perfected over my career in politics is being able to kind of translate a lot of policy, a lot of ideas and positions to the electorate in a way in which they can, easily digest, and also being able to take the conversation out of the House, out of the Senate, and bring it to the public. A lot of people will tell you that one of the people that have public discourse very often. People stop me on the street. They on social media. So I think that that's where we as an opposition could use that sort of direction, because in the House of Assembly, obviously, 24-11, discounting the speaker, it provides a skewed reality, and if you are listening into the House, it can come across as very much chest beating and very uneven. So I do believe that what I would try to bring to the House is more so bringing the House to the people, right? By transitioning conversation outside of the House and disseminating that information and what was said and what was discussed, without them having to tune in to 11 hours or 10 hours of house business.
Indeed. Thank you for that. Audience, if you have any questions or comments for MP Robinson, please send them through. As part of the OBA's shadow cabinet, you were named the shadow minister of tourism, culture, and transport. You're very vocal about tourism in particular. What concerns you most about this entire area of governance, though? How do you plan to hold the government accountable with this shadow ministry?
Well, so the first thing I've gotten to work on is reaching out to stakeholders and people who are concerned in the industry, who work in the industry. Obviously, my background was tourism and retail before transitioning to my current job and career. So it's still very near and dear to me. So I definitely intend to work with stakeholders, work with folks who are within the industry to really formulate arguments and statements that benefit and improve our industry, right? And I think that right now, what we're witnessing is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt in the direction of tourism. So that's why my first statement was kind of like a not a warning shot, but it was kind of a way to enter the stage of saying, listen, this is something that I keep hearing often, that people want to see a cohesive direction. They're not confident in what direction is happening now and aren't even sure on exactly what's happening. I did see that the BTA released a in-depth video that I think is very helpful to folks who are asking these questions. However, more needs to be done on a consistent basis so that the populace feels confident in the direction of tourism, and also that it will be a place for them to get a career and be able to afford to live in Bermuda working in tourism, because Bermudians are picking their careers right now based off of affordability, cost of living. They're not necessarily picking them based off of passions and all that. Like most people say, I'm working a job that, allows me to live a certain standard of life, not necessarily that I enjoy it. So we have to work on making tourism an attractive proposal to Bermudians.
Well, that being said, the Bermuda Tourism Authority has been in the spotlight for a number of years, not for a lot of good things. Recently, the chairman resigned, and there have been numerous articles speaking to the workplace culture. What would you like to see happen with the BTA in particular?
Well, I think one of the things that makes this tricky, right, is that we originally the One Bermuda Alliance kind of created the BTA in a manner in which it was meant to move towards being a independent kind of autonomous self-funded vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. And what we've seen is with the tinkering of the Progressive Labour Party's successive ministers, you've seen that government oversight creep in into the BTA, especially in the latest amendment where certain things needed to be run through the minister to be done. And then you have added another layer by placing MPs on the board and by making a government MP the chairman of the board, former chairman now. And so you have this kind of push and pull of, is it independent, is it not? Because government also controls their purse. Government also has, and by government I mean the Progressive Labour Party, also has a large amount of voice, not just on the board, but at a ministerial level and on a financial level, with the Minister of Finance determining their budget, which has been cut over the successive budgets. So we've really kind of found ourselves in a position where the BTA is neither kind of working towards independence or being part of government. They're neither the Department of Tourism or the BTA at this point. And I think that what I would like to see is government to plant its feet on one direction or the other, because the organization cannot continue with this kind of hodgepodge approach of being independent, but not being able to make decisions, but also having to run it through one PLP MP. You need to meet with a PLP minister. You need to then lobby a PLP finance minister and premier to get funding. So we have to figure out whether or not they're going to fill them back into the Ministry of Tourism with all of these encroaching government oversight, or is government going to commit to really supporting the BTA and becoming a self-funded and an independent organization?
Mm. Well, that said, I mean, much has been said about, you know, collaboration by the government with the opposition. How are you and Minister Darrell going to be able to collaborate going forward in the best interest of Bermuda as far as it relates to the BTA and tourism, culture, and transport?
Uh, sorry to laugh. So if anyone who listens to the Senate knows that we haven't necessarily had the best rapport, but I do believe that in his heart of hearts, Minister Darrell does have Bermuda's best interests, and I think we can find a way to align on that. My role as the shadow is not going to be trying to trip him up or trip the minister up or smear in any way. My role is going to be amplifying messages that the stakeholders are trying to get out, what's best for the industry, and where I believe that changes can be made to improve it. Now, some of those messages are not going to be positive or well received if you are in a ministerial position, but they are the truth and things that need to be discussed. So I do believe we can find consensus and work together. And I think that I will extend the olive branch to the minister and hope that he returns it.
All righty. We've got quite a few questions from the audience. And audience, if you have any questions or comments for MP Robinson, send them through. Mark Arthur C. Phillips saying, good morning, Honorable Member Robinson. How can the OBA be in a better position in order to keep the PLP accountable?
So I think one of the main things is visibility. I think that the OBA has been excellent in the House, pressing the government on various issues. And the press also has been able to report on these issues based off of the parliamentary questions, motion to adjourns, and legislative debate that happens in the House. One way I think we can be more, keep the PLP more accountable is just making sure that the people's voices are more amplified. And I think it comes back down to getting out to all 36 constituencies and making sure that we're getting that feedback from folks so that the opposition is placing itself on topics that are important to Bermudians. I think a lot of times we may be discussing a topic and it may not be resonating with the population, or it may not be a high priority for the population, but it is something important. Like we go on a lot about fiscal responsibility, which is super important to the future of Bermuda. We talk about a balanced budget, but I think that even though those things are very important and it's our role to pressure the PLP on, I think we also need to make sure that we're talking about things that the grassroots find to be a priority.
Okay. We've got Charles H. Jefferson II asking, will MP Robinson be implementing a version of a constituency council in C30 to discuss proposed legislation with people in his constituency?
Yeah, absolutely. Not so much a council. I don't think I called it that, but I use the term branch. So I've actually been actively recruiting and strengthening my branch. So we're going to start kind of revving that engine back up in March 15th when I have my first meeting with them. But yes, we're going to have monthly clinics. I'm actually going to be teaming up with Linda for a lot of this. Linda Smith, who is the MP for Constituency 31, to do joint Southampton monthly meetings. And yeah, we will definitely be taking policy opinions and also bringing policy and the dealings of the House to our constituents directly. And of course, they can always reach me. I get policy advice and recommendations every day in my email and WhatsApp. So,
okay. We've got Michael Daniels. He says, in the spirit of collaboration, do you see yourself and Mr. Fubler working together?
Of course. We tend to both end up going to his uncle's various events. As you know, Mr. Glenn Fubler holds a lot of cultural and historical events that really pass on a lot of knowledge and keep people connected to our history and our roots. And we tend to bump into each other there a lot. I do believe that if the opportunity arises for us to work together in a more formal way, we probably will. But obviously, we do have our specific roles. as he's landed into a junior ministerial role, which will most likely have his attention, and the shadow ministry role of tourism, transport, and culture will have my attention, along with taking care of the constituents of C30. If he does intend to stay in this constituency and there are issues within it that we can work together to solve, that door is always open.
All righty. Maurice Foley, your OBA colleague, asking, what advice would you offer new senators entering into politics?
So for me, my biggest advice is to do your best to set up a advisory group or a team of people within the community that can help you formulate your positions more aligned to expertise opinion, because I find with politics and politicians, we aren't the experts in certain things that we are debating. No, we are competent legislators, and that is our function. But we must always make space, right, for people who do this line of work that we're discussing on a daily basis. So it's like, for myself, I will always be consulting folks who work in tourism on a daily basis, who are promoting our culture on a daily basis, who are working within transport on a daily basis, because that's literally their expertise, and we need to make way for that. And doing that made me very successful in Senate. So, that would be my advice. And also just make sure to keep your finger on the pulse of everything that's happening.
Amari Simon's asking, good morning, MP. He says, what happens with the parliamentary committee on the cyber attack?
Very interesting question. So basically, we have to wait for committees to be, I want to use the word reinstituted by the speaker when the House reconvenes. I believe that it will probably be a members shakeup, as one MP lost his seat in the last election, and it has to be one opposition MP and one opposition senator, and I am no longer a senator, so most likely it will have to be a shakeup and then be reinstituted. But it is very disappointing to have only had a few meetings and then for an election to be called. It doesn't seem very forthcoming to me, but we will definitely stay on top of that.
We've got a question from Wendell X. Ree. Why do you think Bermuda rejected the OBA?
Well, I wouldn't say Bermuda as a whole, but I do believe that, there is historical context that you cannot deny. You cannot move away from the fact that race plays a huge factor in politics, and the OBA has to convince the public that we stand for all Bermudians. And that is something that we're actively working towards. But I think that is going to be our hardest hurdle to jump, is to speak to people 2, 3, 4, 5 times on the doorstep to really show them that we have their back. I would say one glimmer of hope is, the constituencies that we took back that were marginal. A lot of folks say, well, the strong OBA, but C25 is marginal. C7 is become marginal. My seat has become marginal. It's going both ways, and folks worked hard in their seats and were able to, bring them home. And I think that people are looking for constituents and MPs that are accessible, that show up for them, that they can pick up the phone and call or email. And I think that's what we have to work towards in all 36 if we're going to earn the trust back of Bermudians. You got to do it through genuine connection.
Indeed. Just a comment from Charles H. Jefferson II. He said, a self-funded tourism authority is unrealistic, in my opinion. However, funding based on metrics is achievable and should be the goal. Any thoughts on that?
I think, as I said, I always acquiesce to, in my opinion, expertise there. And Mr. Jeffers is one of the folks that, he knows exactly what the BTA needs. I only mention self-funding because that is something that they're stated to be moving towards is more funding for themselves. But absolutely, I think funding metrics are the best bet. If I was to recommend a path forward, that would be that would be the right one, which is to just set metrics and goals of what we wish to achieve as an island in tourism. And when those metrics are reached, have the funding be based on that.
Mhm. The One Bermuda Alliance is in a better position to oppose this time around as opposed to 30-6 in 2020, 25-11. So five additional, almost double what you had. Are you confident that the 11 can make an impact in being the strong opposition that Bermuda needs?
Absolutely. I think that not only just logistics wise, where you had MPs who were double and sometimes tripling up on ministries and trying to be present and active with all the stakeholders in their respective ministries before making statements that are unfounded or untrue. That ties you up in itself, right? Especially if you have massive portfolios like national security or public works to, yeah, keep your eye on. So I think that with 11 people who are in there, 11 MPs, who basically makes it almost one to one with a few of us doubling up, it's not only going to allow for a much more improved scrutiny, but also much more connection to the stakeholders within those groups, because the shadow will now have time to allocate meetings directly to one or two ministries and people that are within those ministries, rather than trying to split him or herself, amongst three or two, or even sometimes four for some folks, if somebody is sick or out of the house for some reason. So I think we will be more effective. And also I think that by getting the Senate team, who I felt was quite strong in the Senate, uh, into a higher rung of profile and allowing them to speak directly to the government, um, MPs and cabinet, will also lead to a stronger voice and more support for the MPs who were in there previously.
All right. Charles H. Jefferson II, he says, with the election over, how do you plan to manage your family, work, parliamentary, and constituency responsibilities? It seems daunting for someone so young, although youth might be a benefit.
Well, what I will say is how the system is set up. Youth is not a benefit, unfortunately. If you are young in your career and young in your family, politics can definitely cost you a lot, especially when you want to be effective at it and give a lot of time. I would say that I am envious of some of my colleagues who are retired and children are grown, who can canvas, throughout the day, or set their whole schedule around doing this. But what I will say is that we have a lot of sharp young people coming up, and what I hope to do is kind of show that young leaders can be taken seriously. But I want to make sure that folks know that it is a daunting task when you are trying to not only grow in your private sector career to make sure that you can continue to provide for your family, but also want to be present in your child's young years. So for me, I have a very kind of tight schedule where, constituents can call me and reach out to me anytime. But I do definitely set time periods aside to spend with my son, to spend with my wife, to catch up with my mother and my little brother. So, obviously it is a constant juggling match. But what I will also say is that your support system, your family plays a huge role in making that easier, because instead of hassling me, they really step up to not only assist me but also make themselves available around constituency things and other responsibilities that I may have. So they've been an excellent team for me, and I'm very blessed in that regard.
All righty. Before you head out, one last question. What would you say to, I mean, you saw the results of the election, right? It seems like people are no longer interested in the political process. What would you say to uh, regain the trust of the electorate, and to involve them in the process? I mean, people are just so far removed, they don't care. What would you say to them to get them back?
Well, I think it's two things. I think it's the fact that, we have to acknowledge that our people in Bermuda are at a point where they're focusing on holding on, right? Every time you go on the doorstep, you hear that Bermudians are under duress, either from healthcare costs or cost of living or educating their children, repairing their cars from the roads, or, it's just a whole lot of different issues that, you know, Bermudians are facing right now. And so it's hard for us to expect them to take on all of that in their private life and what they need to do in their personal lives to then turn around and give back to the public arena when it comes to keeping up with politics and all that. But what I will say and implore them to do is to recognize that a lot of those problems, they lead back to politics, right? And elections have consequences no matter which way they go. And I think that what I would say is, number one, from the legislative side, from the government side, we need to do more civic engagement, not just in schools, but also in the community. We need to kind of bring the house to the community. We cannot expect people to give up hours of their life to listen to the house, especially with the state of debate as it is now. What I will say to folks who are looking to get re-engaged into politics or stay at home during the election is that, please, I implore you to think about the benefits of engaging in our democracy. Understand that having governments without mandates is dangerous. Having governments who are making decisions on behalf of you when you did not cast your vote one way or the other is extremely dangerous. We need to make sure that our governments are elected based off of a mandate of the majority, right? Because right now we can't say that the majority support the Progressive Labour Party or their platform or their direction for the island because so many people abstained. So we have to make sure that our people are coming forward and actually claiming a government, because that is the only way we can ensure our democracy is strong and continues.
Indeed. Thank you for that. Always a pleasure having a chat with you. First time MP. I'll have to tune in. I have to get back to it because, again, the level of I used to listen to the House religiously, and then the level of debate just it became more of a headache. Like, I can't believe this is real life to me. And that's not to say it's a Bermuda thing, because if you've ever watched C-SPAN in the U.S., it's no different. So it's not a disrespect to or attack on Bermudian politicians. It's just politics can sometimes be so low level and childlike. My hope is that the level of debate can increase, that the premier and saying he wants to collaborate, Senator Lindsey Simmons' words about this being a different opposition. My hope is that it's not just talk and it leads to encouraging adult-like communication that's going to put Bermuda in a better space. At the end of the day, I think the end goal for everyone is the same, and that's a better Bermuda. I think where we disagree is how we go about making that happen. So again, congratulations to you. You know what I'll be doing here, holding you accountable.
Yes.
Making sure that things happen. Like you, myself, I very focused on what happens with tourism. I'm hoping that there's more resignations in myself, but I do believe, and I've said this on the show publicly, that I do believe that Minister Darrell could actually be one of the best tourism ministers we've had if he stays out the way, if he lets the board do their thing, which I kind of believe that's been happening, but I think he could go on. And with your support or collaborative, I know you guys rock, but to me, bashing heads and clashing heads isn't a bad thing. I mean, have you watched this show? Have you seen Sanchez myself? But I'm saying, I think it could be a good thing. And I think you're the right person to be in the House on the OBA's team right now. But not even if you weren't on their team, I think you bring something different that's needed. And I hope that you'll, remain consistent and not sway over time like we've seen others. So congratulations to you and all the best to you. We'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All righty. Dwayne Robinson, newly elected MP. Audience, if you appreciated the discussion and conversation this morning, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share it with your friends, your family, colleagues. We're going to take a final break. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 32 seconds. Got a daily play for you. I want to see how many of you know music. Don't go anywhere.